The way life occurs to us is that there's always somewhere to get to until you realize that there isn't. So suffering similarly is always present until you realize that there isn't suffering. And that, to me, is the beauty of the human experience. So suffering is unavoidable by virtue of we're here. But nonetheless, the opportunity, the possibility that it is to be human is to transcend suffering. And it's such a beautiful design again, because if it weren't for the previous suffering, we don't get to experience the latter freedom. As an adult, I got to see myself in a picture, an old black and white, of me as a child in my cute little onesie, whatever it is, running with my arms out. My mother is sort of very gently ushering me from behind. So you can see that she's sort of directing me towards somebody who you can't see because they're off camera. They're out of frame from the picture. But I know because of the setting, it was set at a harbor, at a dock, where the boat had just, come to berth. And we've probably come off the boat. And I'm running towards my dad because my dad worked on the boats. And as I looked at that photo, and it's this old black and white, and this adorable little child, which, is running towards his father who he loves, his dad. And what had occurred to me is at that moment, one of the most important parts of love is the energy of missing somebody. We often think that love is I'm with someone, I'm sharing a dinner with them, I'm going to bed with them, or it could be a family member who I'm living with or I'm sharing time with constantly. But that denies the flip side of the same coin, which is one of the most beautiful aspects of love, is what feels like the absence of the experience of love. And we can call that missing somebody. And why it was so profound for me is to see that little child run towards his dad with the excitement of the fact that for a minute, maybe a day, maybe a week, it could be longer, we experience the separation from that which we love. And if it weren't for the experience of separation, we would not appreciate the joy of love. And so why I use that example as it relates to suffering and freedom is because separation is hurtful, it's painful, and that is suffering. And in this case, suffering is where we become separate from the knowledge, from the true wisdom of our true essence. Whilst freedom is the remembrance and the awakening to the essence of who I am at my core, which is freedom. So the two are inextricably connected and simultaneously necessary in order to experience one or the other. If it weren't for the experience of missing, I don't get to go to the depths of the joy of love. And equally, if it weren't for the pain and the seeming inconvenience of human suffering, then I wouldn't get to experience the elation and the joy of liberation that is true freedom. When you really understand that dynamic, it's so beautiful to see the duality of everything. Yeah. And I would actually take it a little deeper, which is to say that freedom really is the container. Like love is the container that holds both, right? So we have the joy and we have the misery. We have the happiness and we have the sadness. And this is where if we can be big enough, expanded enough as human beings, then we make space for all of it. It would be as nonsensical, for people who think they just want to be positive and happy. That is like asinine. It would be like me saying, no, all I want to do is inhale because that's so good because you get oxygen. It'd be like, what the hell? Like, if it weren't for the fact that I get to exhale and let go of, in this case, obviously, physiologically, biologically, the toxins of carbon dioxide and stuff that no longer serves me because it's already served its purpose in my body, then I wouldn't get the joy of having that cyclical process of inhale, exhale that keeps me alive. So similarly, the actual nature of duality, both parts are flip sides of the same coin that are an inherent experience of being human, and the degree to which we can embrace both is the degree to which we are truly free to allow all aspects of what it means to be human. So suffering is really one aspect, but it is an aspect where there is ultimately a form of ignorance. And I don't mean that as a judgment. I mean it truly in the fact that we don't know something. We suffer because we don't know how extraordinary we are. We suffer because we don't know that we actually are loved. We suffer because we don't feel safe. And it is in that ignorance, the not knowing, the absence of knowledge, that we suffer. And the process of awakening is realizing, oh, these are lies. And as I transcend lie, I expand into my bigger nature, which then is the experience of liberation, which is contained in the safety that we are held and beneficiaries of life because we are fundamentally loved. So the way I look at it is that this dimension that we are in as human beings, to me, is a revelatory dimension. What does that mean? Life will reveal where you yourself as a being do not experience freedom. Life will present you with people and circumstances to reveal where you're not free. So why is that a completely different perspective or a different way of looking at the experience of life? Because most people are playing the human game. What is the human game? They're trying to accumulate, right? Accumulation of status, accumulation of possessions, accumulation of finance. And they're trying to play the game of I'm becoming a better human by virtue of what I have usually. Now that's not wrong, but it's also, to me, it's a powerless game to play. Whereas the awakening process of who I am as a being who is limitless, who is in its infancy and its true inherent nature, nothing but love, peace, power, freedom. That is, to me, the game that's really afoot for human beings. That is the opportunity that it is to be a human, is to awaken to the true essence of who I am, rather than being defined by the persona that has been conditioned over time, that is now founded in the essence of survival. That is two entirely different approaches to the human experience. One is linear and one is vertical, right? So linear is, okay, hopefully over time I'm going to improve. I got a promotion, I got a corner office, I got a bigger home, I got a nicer car, I've got a little bit more money. That is, there's again, no judgment, but it is a futile, dead-end method of trying to find internal value by using external and exogenous means to bring some sense of worth, versus discovering, wow, my inherent nature is freedom. My inherent nature is love. My inherent nature is peace. And life is constantly giving me the opportunity to awaken to those qualities by virtue of presenting to me, ironically, where I don't experience those. So that's why, again, I said life will present you with people and circumstances to reveal where you're not free. We often look at those circumstances as frustrating, as things we don't want. But that's precisely why they're being given to us, because we've yet to see how powerful and extraordinary we are, that we have yet to integrate those experiences and see that I can truly be with whatever is occurring and maintain my inner sense of peace and freedom and love. We arrive as beings, but shrouded in constraint. We arrive as souls, but constrained by fear. And the game of this particular dimension of planet Earth and being human is, oh, awesome. We are set here so that we can reveal where we are confined, constrained, and have some sense of separation and limitation. And so life is the process of sloughing by virtue of these trials and tribulations and these sort of confronting circumstances, really is a form of resistance, which, just like polishing a diamond, is allowing us to recognize where we still feel constrained, or we arrive with our bucket of fears. And as I say, the quote unquote winner of the game is who can get rid of their fears the fastest. Not that there is any urgency, but we could say, and I would assert, that true liberation and true freedom, which is my main product, is when we have confronted all of the fears that we arrive with, to recognize that in fact, there is nothing to fear itself whatsoever. And that was always just a narrative that was part of our persona or our ego, that was just simply the cocoon in which we felt we needed to live in order to stay safe, when in fact it's quite the antithesis of that, which is true security is when I no longer need the illusion of external security. If the experience I have with another person is of some form of disharmony, of judgment, of hostility, then that really is a reflection of what's going on inside of me. So, as I say, as we express, so we experience, right? So if I'm expressing anger towards whoever or whatever the circumstance may be, then I am experiencing anger, right? So just as water travels through, say, a garden hose, if the garden hose was sentient and it had feeling internally, it would feel the passage of the water when it was cold or hot or how fast it's moving. So likewise, as we express our emotional state, we're under the impression that it's by virtue of what's going on outside of us. But whether it is or not, in terms of our interpretation, we're nonetheless experiencing all of that. So then why wouldn't I, if I know that correlation, if I'm actually aware of that formula, then why wouldn't I, wherever possible, bring an experience of love and joy to whoever it might be, because then I'm equally the beneficiary of it. And this is why exercises like gratitude journals or going and being a volunteer and being of service to a community feels good. Why does it feel good? Because what I'm actually doing is I'm bringing the experience of my true self, is what I would assert, and I'm sharing to another, I'm giving to another. And therefore, I am equally the beneficiary of my own active contribution. You know, Einstein said you look at the universe in one of two ways. Everything is a miracle or nothing's a miracle, right? And so really, when you get, like, we are beneficiaries of life, even though, again, I've been through a ton of what felt like unnecessarily hardship that at the time, my little persona was like, I don't want this sucks. But really, in hindsight, is often the case, we recognize, wow, if it weren't for those events, if it weren't for those, hardships, then I wouldn't have discovered that expansiveness of what I've just stepped into. And why I use the expression that smooth seas never made a good sailor, right? So we need, adversity itself is the catalyst for growth. Life is the greatest teacher by virtue of the fact that it gives us challenges so that it can, as I said earlier, slough off anything that is confining us, anything that is holding us back, a constraint that is in some way limiting our self-expression. We need some resistance to get rid of that. And that is, at times a very difficult pill to swallow, but it is nonetheless the catalyst to discover that really we are held eternally. It's like the metaphor, the image of these trapeze artists, right? The experience for anybody who goes up on a trapeze from the perspective of the ego is fear if there's no net, right? You would feel such intrepidation of letting go of the trapeze bar to transition maybe to your partner and be caught in the absence of knowing there was some safety net. And that's the ego's experience as it goes through life. It feels that at any turn, its existence is in potential danger. Everything can come across as a potential threat. And that's an exhausting place to live from. Conversely, if we can tap into this deeper essence of understanding the nature of life, and particularly the nature of who we are, then at every turn, there is always a safety net. It might not feel like it, but we can drop, we can fall, we can miss the grip of the partner as we transition from trapeze bar to trapeze bar, and it's okay. And that we could say our errors, our mistakes, our failures, and it's okay.